Welcome to Brave Together podcast, an empowering resource for the parents of children with disabilities, neurodivergence, and all unique needs.
Also reframing that outside of inspirational, disabled people can also be really cool and someone that you aspire to. You can like someone's style just because you like their style, not just because oh, they tried and that's extra cool because right. It's it's not as good as somebody else, but good on them. You can aspire to be, what they are too.
Hello, Bravies. I am Susanna Peace Lavelle, author, life coach, and advocate for disability families. As always, I am so excited to be joined by my co-host, Jessica Pate, brave mom and founder of the nonprofit We Are Brave Together. On this episode, number 240, we are hearing about the experience of another thriving disabled adult. April Lockhart is the founder of Disabled and, as well as a powerful advocate for the disabled community. She is also a contributing fashion editor at Marie Claire and a proud member of the Hello Sunshine Collective. April has been featured in Vogue, The Cut, Byrdie, Refinery 29, Who What Wear, and Fast Company, among many others. Her 2023 debut at New York Fashion Week, where she walked for Victoria's Secret's adaptive line, along with her work modeling for Anthropologie's adaptive collection, solidified her status as a true trailblazer in both the fashion industry and the advocacy space. And in 2025, April was honored on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. In this episode, April shares what it's been like to build a career at the intersection of fashion, visibility, and disability advocacy, and how she's redefining what representation can look like on a global stage. A quick reminder to please rate and review this podcast, share episodes with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our episode highlights posted weekly on our We Are Brave Together YouTube channel. Now, please enjoy our amazing conversation with the stunning, powerful, and trailblazing April Lockhart.
Hi, April. Welcome to the show. Susanna and I are so excited to have you.
I am just as excited. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start by just having you share your journey to becoming an advocate and influencer in the disability community. And was there a pivotal moment that inspired you to start sharing your story?
Yeah, so I was born with a limb difference. My left arm is right below the elbow. And so, I've kind of grown up like this, and it's been a huge insecurity a lot of my life. And I would say, honestly, up until last year or 2 years, I definitely was not confident. But I think a lot of disabled people can relate. You kind of go through these different phases of starting over in life. Any new season, whether that's a new school or a new job or dating, you kind of with a visible disability, I found myself always hiding until I felt safe. And then I would open up. So, I would say there were different points in my life where my disability was more visible, but kind of through college and early in my career, I kind of regressed into this hole of hiding. And for me, that's really easy with long sleeves or a blazer or something like that. All throughout jobs, I think none of my bosses knew that I had a limb difference until 2 weeks into my job, which is hilarious because they were probably jaw dropped, but couldn't say anything. I just didn't want it to affect how I was perceived. So 3 years ago now, I just got to a point, and I'm very much a woman of faith and believe that everything happens for a reason. And I felt why am I hiding this? I was creating content on Instagram. I had probably 10,000 followers, something like that. It wasn't resonating with people. And I wonder why, because I wasn't being authentic at all. And I just got to a point where I love New Year's resolutions too. I was this year I'm going to start something new. And so I had seen a bunch of people doing outfit series, day one of winter outfits or something like that. And I was I'm going to start a series called Normalizing Disabled Fashion Girlies. And so I had started doing that for 30 days. And it wasn't an overnight viral sensation, but it definitely was well received. And, by day 2, I had gotten picked up by an outlet called Byrdie, which is a beauty outlet. And they asked me to write kind of about my journey doing this series, which was really special to me. My background is working in beauty marketing. So that kind of spiraled me on this journey. It was kind of like pushing myself, like what I'm doing isn't working. It's not resonating. It doesn't make me feel good. So like maybe something has to change.
Wow. Wow. And was that scary for you?
Yeah, for sure. I pressed post and then I threw my phone on the couch and didn't look at it for like 12 hours.
Yes. Jump right in. So before, as a content creator, you were all about sort of fashion, and what else was sort of your thing?
I guess mostly fashion. I loved beauty as well, and was working like a corporate job in beauty. So I would just like post about my life, but like it was so easy for me to angle myself a certain way where you couldn't see my arm, or again, use long sleeves. And so I just like was trying to keep up with the Jones. Like I was trying to create content that everyone else was doing, but it's like somebody already did it first. So, why does somebody want to follow me? And it felt inauthentic looking back on it.
So you were not sharing at all about your limb difference prior to
like 3 years ago. I mean, I would say there are different phases. I did music as a teenager. It's like a little known fact. So when I was like 18, I was on a singing show called Rising Star on ABC. And I played guitar through my teen years, like with a prosthetic. So, during that period of my life, obviously it was very prevalent. You could see like I'm playing guitar with one hand. And that was kind of like part of the story that they wove into the show. And so it was prevalent then. But after that, I started college and started working my career. I very much like went back to hiding.
Mm.
And so tell us some of the responses, April, when you hit post and threw your phone on the sofa.
It's been so amazing. And I mean, I never thought that people would be mean. Like, I don't think I was scared of that. I think I was more scared of like friends and family, like really seeing me, or even like coworkers, again, like working in the age of COVID, like all my coworkers see me from, my shoulders up. And so like having people see like, wow, we never knew that about April. Like, and all of a sudden now we know she has a limb difference. And then showing up to work the next day on Zoom calls like, hey, feeling like they know this big secret about me or something. So, but the response was so positive. And, I think what I love about what you guys are doing too, like so many of the people that reach out to me now are parents of kids with disabilities, and, just saying like, thank you so much. Or there's not a lot of resources about limb difference specifically, like, thank you for just sharing your lived experience. And I don't try to like, I'm not an expert by any means, but the coolest thing that I've heard is, wow, your content is so educational. Like I learned so much from following you. And I'm like, so interesting, because I don't set out to be educational or teach anything. It's just like talking about my experience. Or now a big part of my content is interviewing other people with disabilities, just like asking them questions. And then by result, like, I guess it is educational content. And I'm like, that's so cool, because I'm learning at the same time that everybody that follows me is learning.
I really love this reminder that when we show up as our most authentic self, it's almost like the quickest portal to sort of connection and abundance. Like that's the only thing I can think of. And so I know, everything has to happen in the right time and space, and you're feeling a certain way. But I love this so much. I, was telling you a little bit earlier before we started recording, I have a 19-year-old daughter with disabilities, and she's going through phases. I want people to know. I don't want people to know. I want people to know. I don't want people to know. And I'm always trying to encourage her to just be herself. And, mostly she really is, because it's hard for her to be anything else. And at the same time, I'm also wanting to honor her timing and what's going on for her, because I am not a disabled person, right? So anyway, I'm so curious when you meet others out in the wild, we like to say, either young girls or boys or people your age, is there anything you do to sort of like, sort of give the head nod, or like, I see you, or we talk about this as moms. And so just curious about that.
That's a good point. And not really, like, I haven't figured that out yet. Like, I don't always know what the right thing to say is. And weirdly enough, I've had this my whole life, but I've really only like been submersed in the community for about a year and a half. Was like the first time I was around other people with disabilities, like in a big way, and especially like communities of limb different kids. So I don't know. And I think I've battled with feeling like so uncomfortable, like through many years, that I'm just like, let them do their thing, let me do my thing. The thing I'm not going to do is like stare at them and be like, and sometimes I've probably felt that maybe like the couple interactions that I have had where people are like, hey, you and me, we're the same. And I'm like, oh, like sometimes a little charged by it. So I don't know, but I do think there's something like now that I probably can do, like a little wave or just like smile at least until they realize. There was a cool moment that I went to my first Copenhagen Fashion Week, and the very first presentation that I walk into, and a presentation versus a fashion show are like the models are kind of just like standing around and they kind of like live interact with the audience. They'll sometimes get up and walk around, sometimes they'll sit in a chair. And I was like so jet lagged from a 13-hour flight. I walk off into this first presentation and one of the models has a limb difference. And I'm like, am I in a daze? Like I've never seen a model with a limb difference. And she was this gorgeous Scandinavian girl. And that was the one moment where I was like, I need to like get her attention. Like, I don't know. So of course I'm just like videoing her like Amy Poehler and Mean Girls mom. And I'm just like, and also they can't really like acknowledge you because they're technically working, they're modeling. But it was cool. I think obviously she saw me and I posted about it after and she was like, that was such a cool moment, and ended up kind of going viral. And so it was really cool. And I got to see the designer afterwards and I was like, hey, your model has a limb difference. And she was like, I know. She's like, I didn't know if I should like tell you that, or like, she was like, I thought I'd just like let you see on your own. And so it was a really, really cool moment.
That's so great. And I'm so happy that they were intentional about that. How has social media changed the landscape for disability representation and advocacy?
I think it's helped like make it a lot more approachable for people. I also feel, and maybe it's just my feed, the more I've gotten involved in it, the way like more I'm seeing it. I feel like when I had first started, even 3 years ago, like there were not a lot of disabled creators, or especially fashion creators, lifestyle creators. I feel like now I'm seeing a lot of people like start to share their own journeys, whether that's like day in the life vlogs or, their own outfits or beauty routines, or talking about like more accessible products. Like I'm seeing it way more. And I know it is new because I feel like sometimes I'll see, smaller accounts like just starting to do it for the first time. So that's really exciting for me, is, hoping that I played some small part in planting some of those seeds. I mean, I know people have been doing this for so many more years, but I think, it's just like everybody has their own little community too, whether that's friends and family, whether you have 100 followers or 1 million followers, like you're reaching some audience. So that's cool about social media.
What would you say to somebody who's just newly starting out, wanting to find their voice and start to share authentically?
I think finding a group of people to follow is really helpful. Like I find that a lot of the same people, like we comment on each other's stuff. We've kind of become like hype girls for each other. And that's really encouraging, is like, people are so, apt to like comment on your post when you're commenting on theirs. And I love this little community that I've found. And I think it's just documenting your day to day. Like don't get caught up in making it perfect. Like people really resonate with raw, organic content, super unfiltered. Like it doesn't even need to be edited sometimes. It could just be like these really cool moments. I mean, I'm sure you guys follow a ton of different parents of kids with disabilities, like just sharing these really unfiltered moments. Like that's what people resonate with. So I guess like just starting to document your day-to-day life, like don't let it feel intimidating.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So if we can talk about community for a little bit, because I feel like community and connection is one of the most supportive sort of mechanisms for me in my life, in terms of just not feeling alone, or just feeling like I can run something by somebody, or just even if our, walks of life are a little bit different, it just feels like, okay, well, I know that I have my people, right? Somewhere I can reach out to someone. Yeah. So I just want to talk about this community, that this organization that you founded called disabled and if you could talk about it a little bit more and sort of what was your did you have an aha moment or what was your motivation behind creating this particular community?
Yeah. So I had never been around people with disabilities. And so September 2023, so about a year and a half ago, I got invited to walk this nonprofit runway show. It's called Runway of Dreams. And so they partner with different brands to help them launch like adaptive capsule collections. So like Tommy Hilfiger, JCPenney, Adidas, Victoria's Secret. And so I said yes to doing that. And for the first time in my life, I was around about 80 other people with disabilities, like walking into this room where you're not getting stared at for the very first time because everyone looks completely different, was so beautiful and overwhelming in a good way. Like I walked away being like, wow, I have to like process that. Like that was a lot, but so cool. And that gave me this itch to just like start saying yes to every opportunity to be around other people with disabilities. So the next occurrence was about 6 months later. I got invited to a picnic here in Nashville, put on by an organization called Jordan Thomas Foundation and for limb difference awareness. And they were like, it's going to be a bunch of kids with limb difference. Like, would you come? I'm sure like their parents would be so excited to see you. And it's funny because at that point I had been creating content for at least over a year about my limb difference, but I had never like been around other people. And so I was like, sure. And I was so nervous. And I came and there was probably like 20 kids and parents. And that was the first time I kind of got to see like the fruits of my labor. Like I was so shocked. Like the parents knew me. They were like, can we take pictures with you and the girls? And I was like, whoa, like I felt like a mini celebrity.
Totally.
And just, so that was kind of a crazy moment and just sent me on this spiral of like, I was like, am I going to start a nonprofit? Like I'm a big ideas person and I'm a big branding person. And I was like, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I'm going to like do something. And my friends who work in nonprofit were like, you don't want to start a nonprofit. I was like, all right, I am not super educated, so fair enough. So they were like, just start hosting events like under your own name, see what the need is from the community, like listen to people, hear what they want, what's resonating, what's not. I was like, okay, they were like, build a database. And so I was like, all right, fair enough. So I started hosting for about a year. The first thing I did was a photo shoot for adult girls with disabilities in New York City around the time of Fashion Week. We gave them each a photo slot so they could take whatever photos that they wanted. If they were an aspiring model, they could do a test shoot. If they needed new LinkedIn headshots, they could get that. And then after that, we did an event for young girls with limb difference and a number of different events, just like bringing people together, dinner parties and moments where they could connect. And for me, that always involves some kind of like fashion element. For the little girls, we gave them like new dresses and had someone do like glitter and braids. And for the adult women, we gave them like beauty products and just like these moments that like make you feel beautiful and pretty and elevated. I think I've now been to a lot of nonprofit events in the last year, which are amazing. They're doing such amazing work. And that money should be spent on like important things, like, things that insurance might not cover. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of disabled women don't get to also be in like elevated spaces. And from coming from my world, being invited to like so many influencer dinners and hosting a lot of brand dinners, like, I'm used to being around like glitzy glam places. And I found that there wasn't like that connection of, bringing disabled women together, but also offering them this elevated experience. And so many people saw the events over social media and were just like, how can we sign up? Where can we hear about this? We see you posting, but we don't know how to get involved. And so it had kind of outgrown me. And so that's when I decided to start something new. And it's not an official nonprofit. It's like just this project for now. And maybe it will turn into one day, but it's called Disabled And that thought kind of just comes from, I wanted it to not be cringy. And like, there's so many words in our community, like differently abled or handy capable, that are just like a little bit condescending. And so I was like, I want it to be like disabled and cool, disabled and fashionable, disabled and stylish. And I was like, what if it's just disabled and we allow like our people to fill in their own blank? So that was long-winded, but
I have chills. I have chills. I love that, disabled and it's like you get to paint the canvas on what the rest of that sentence is.
Yeah.
Yeah. At whatever season in your life too. Mm-hmm. That's what I think is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really cool to see. And like, that's been just a fun part of the branding too, of like seeing what, all of these words are. It could be an adjective, it could be a noun, it could be your job, it could be something that you aspire to be. And I think reclaiming that word disability too is like, I feel like new to this community. And so I've asked so many women, like, what do you think about the word? And they're like, it just like is what it is. Like, I am disabled. It's like I'm tall, or I'm a type A, or I have brown hair. It's not a bad word. It just is a fact. It's an adjective.
And I just think that is so supportive in terms of having role models as young women. Like again, I always go back to my daughter, whose name is Arizona, by the way. And she just loves looking up to like young adults that are older, but still like could be her peer. Do you know what I'm saying? And she really is, it's so important for her to, representation matters. She actually tells me this all the time.
That's
she was
awesome.
so excited about, she's a doll collector, and she was so excited to get this new doll that has vitiligo, right? And vitiligo actually runs in our family. And so she was like, Mommy, look, there's nothing wrong with this doll. She has vitiligo, and that's representation. And look, this one has a wheelchair and right? So she's very interested. And yet she's at this, stage in her life where she's just like, well, but I also want to fit in. And so I don't want people to necessarily know that I'm in special education and, things like that. So I just think this is beautiful. And I am telling you, yes, I got chills also. Like Jessica, when you were just talking about, wow, you were in this space for the first time and felt like you didn't have to hide. You know what I mean? And I appreciate so much your transparency in that, yeah, however many years you've been on this earth, you were born with a limb difference, right? So you've been this person in this world, and yet you're just, you're so leaning into with like an open heart, everything that is, this community represents and how you are and how you show up in this community. So I feel like that is, I just love transparency and vulnerability. And this is so juicy. And I can't wait for other events to pop up. I'm assuming that you do them all over the world sometimes, or how does that work?
All over the world, Susanna. I hope so.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Exactly.
Yes.
I am in Nashville, so we do a lot here, but we've done stuff in New York. We're hoping to come to LA, so we'll see you then, early next year, I hope. So yeah, those are probably the main markets for now. But like, we have a sign up form on our website, just like trying to see where people are at that have a desire for this. And it's like, if people want us to come to Florida, we'll come to Florida.
Yeah. And who are your mentors? Who do you look up to?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have had like a ton of mentors that have sort of like gone before me, but I definitely look to my peers that I've met in the last few years as like inspiration. And a lot of them have been a lot more comfortable with their disabilities for a lot longer. I mean, someone who's become a really great friend of mine, Bree Scalisi, is an amazing model and wheelchair user. And another friend of ours, Maya Moore, her handle's One-Handed Overdressed. They've kind of become like two of my besties. And so they, I look to them often for just like inspiration and, like, is this good? Like, is this silly, or like, is this cringy? And I feel like they kind of like check me in a good way. This is kind of going backwards, but Susanna, to your point about your daughter too, and representation, like I've loved all the characters, all the cast of Love on the Spectrum, and just like seeing them like rise to fame, like even Madison with her doll collection. I'm sure your daughter has seen her, like to see how beloved they are. And like, so many brands are now like using them for campaigns, and they've become like truly like celebrities. It's just like so cool for younger girls to see.
Well, speaking of Love on the Spectrum, I was just at this conference the other day on neurodivergence and emotional and mental well-being. And it was fantastic. And they honored Abby from Love on the Spectrum during the lunch. And it was so sweet. In her speech, she was like, and guess what? I have fans. You know what I mean? It was so sweet. I mean, she's just so like authentic, and just, I'm going to tell you exactly what's in here is going to come out of my mouth. And you could tell she was just so excited about that,
Yeah.
I love it.
That.
How do you balance vulnerability when you're sharing your personal story and different aspects of your life online?
It's hard. I think I really push myself to be vulnerable and to be authentic. It's kind of ironic that it's not always the easiest thing to be authentic. It's actually like way easier to follow the crowd and follow what other people want you to be. So I think just like reminding myself that the content too that has resonated the most with people is the most vulnerable, is the most unfiltered, is the most just like unedited moments. And so I think it's like coming back to that. The end of the year always gets me thinking.
I agree. I always say vulnerability breeds connection. When people are contemplating whether they really share out loud their story as parents, I say, you're going to have people message you and say, thank you so much for saying how I feel and what I experience. I feel so validated because you're sharing out loud your story.
Yeah, that's so good. I totally agree.
So, April, take us back in time. Tell us about your family. Do you have siblings? What was it like growing up in your family?
I do have siblings. I feel like I had a really good upbringing. My parents were super supportive. I think back then, like I was born in 95, my parents didn't see my limb difference on a sonogram, like it wasn't in any ultrasound. So they had no idea until I was born. So I think that was pretty polarizing for them, especially for my dad. I think he was just like totally blown away and just like, why would this happen? Like, of course, like they look back on that time now as just like everything happened for a reason, but it was scary for them. And then, they supported me all along the way. I had prosthetics until I was maybe like 7. I tried using a couple different ones, and then I found like I just adapted easier without them. But, when I wanted to do gymnastics or I wanted to do cheerleading, like my parents were always just like, okay, I wanted to learn guitar at like 12, and they were like, great, we'll figure it out. And they never made me feel like, and when I give parents now who follow me advice, like they never made me feel like I couldn't do something. And they never even like flinched at requests that I would have or flinched at like aspirations that I would have. So I'm sure behind the scenes, they were like, how are we going to have our one-handed daughter play guitar? But they never like showed that to me, which I think has given me the resilience that I have now. I had to figure it out on my own. And a lot of those things weren't easy doing, cheerleading with one hand and trying to figure out tumbling. But I was the one to figure it out. And they kind of let me do it on my own. I don't feel like they ever babied me. Like they never no pun intended, they never handheld with me. They really were just like, okay, you want to do it? Like, great. Like, we'll give you, if you need a tool to help do it, we'll give it to you. But otherwise, like, you're going to figure it out on your own. And I think so many people with disabilities are, so resilient. Like we have this really innate like hustle in us to like figure something out on our own.
Mm.
How about your siblings, April? Were they also of the same sort of like, yeah, we can all do what we need to do? I mean, it sounds like your parents are wonderful human beings. So bless them.
Yeah, my siblings are both younger than me. So I think that's like an interesting dynamic of like, I was the older sister. And so they kind of probably looked up to me in some ways. And I don't think we never really talked about it. Like, and I think that's a theme for sure, which for better or for worse, like it wasn't talked about a ton in my home. Like, April has a limb difference and she's different. It was more like, yeah, April has one hand, but like, we're going to figure it out. Or like, it's not going to be a topic that makes her other, which I think I prefer looking back on. But yeah, my siblings, I think now it's cool for them to see like the impact that I'm making, and they're both so supportive. But, funny enough, I feel like I was the one who like had it together. Like my middle sister, like love her so much, was the one who was more like chaotic and like always having, middle child, like just always having issues or like, not doing as well in school. And I don't know if it was because of my disability that I excelled in other areas. Like I think sometimes I do think that could be a reason. Like I always tried harder. I was super hardworking. And so maybe that did make me more attentive in school or, better at extracurricular activities. Like I would like to think so, versus sometimes like you're born able-bodied, like you maybe try less, like you can get by with what you have. Like I couldn't get by maybe with what I had. So I had to try harder and that made me like excel more. So I think, I was always the one who like had it together. It's funny because I've become close with a family now who one of the little girls is 6 and has limb difference and she's become my little friend, but she has 3 younger sisters and her sisters are always like, I wish I had a little hand like Emmy. Like they think it's cool that she gets to like come to these cool parties with me and like, gets fun gifts. And they're just like, I wish I had a little hand. Like they like, look up to her. So that's kind of fun.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. That warms my heart.
I like how you said that it sounds like your parents were pragmatic about it. And it was like, this is what it is. And I really appreciate how you phrased that. Like they didn't make you feel like an other.
Yeah.
There was no othering about it by spending a lot of time focused on it and dwelling on it and going on and on and on about it. So is that something that you would advise parents?
I think it probably is disability specific. Like it probably depends on what their child's disability is. But I do think there's a level of like hands off that can be good, of like allowing them to fail, allowing them to try, allowing them to figure it out. Because, I think I see sometimes, and sometimes it's good to be a helicopter parent. And sometimes, kids with intellectual disabilities, like maybe they can't just like be thrown into the fire and figure it out. Like they may need a little bit more support, but them giving me the space to figure things out definitely helped.
And is there anything that you wish they had done differently?
I mean, I think it could have maybe been talked about a little bit more, but also like at the time, I don't think I was ready to talk about it. So, they were just like doing what they knew how. I think maybe some like like some literal things like physical therapy, things now that I've been involved in the community, and I don't really have a lot of like shoulder pain or anything, but now that I've gotten more involved in the limb difference community, a lot of the women are like, oh, do you experience overuse pain yet? And I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it hit me around 30. And I'm like, oh, like, it's the pain of like overusing one arm, which can affect your back and stuff like that. I mean, some I'm sure are worse than others, but they're like, now I go to physical therapy to do just like little muscle exercises and stuff like that. So maybe some of the like literal things of like making sure that you're physically at your best. But I think, all in all, like I really wouldn't change anything. I think they did like such a great job and I'm appreciative now that they are so supportive of this. And I think, I'm sure we were all like waiting for it in some way, like, and they knew when the time came, I would be ready to talk about it.
April, did you grow up in a small town or city, or where did you grow up?
I guess like regular suburban town. I grew up in New Jersey, so like about an hour out of New York City. Like I was familiar with New York City. We would go there for like a couple times a year, but I lived in just like a regular town in New Jersey.
Do you think being close to New York City sparked your interest in fashion?
Probably, yeah. My dad was also a musician and very like, I feel like he loved style too. It's funny that my mom has like 0 sense of style, but my dad like really bad. And she uses like the same makeup that she has for like 30 years, even though I give her so many things to try. Yeah, I think my dad and my grandmother on my dad's side was like very fashionable. She always had like amazing leopard coats and like jewelry. And so I think it probably came from like the two of them. New York was like, I think it was nice to know New York was close. Like it felt like always like big opportunities, were close by.
Mm-hmm. I know that for the most part, you've had so much positive feedback from folks who you interact with online. And I'm curious though, have you ever experienced any sort of criticism or skepticism or ableism? Has there been anything or, any examples that you can share with us and how you responded?
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially on TikTok, I feel like things can sometimes get on the wrong algorithm. It's not often, but like a couple times a video can go viral and end up on the wrong side of the internet. And then I think, I really don't let things like stick for me. I'm like, they're all bots, like they're not real people. That's how I like make it make sense to me. But, sure, people say like things that, your hand looks gross, or like looks like a chicken hand, or like, or just making silly comments like need a hand, or like, someone like chopped her hand out, like just silly things. So I think like for me, I don't let it stick. From within the disabled community, I think the response 99% of the time is so positive, but also people can say like, you're not including enough range of disabilities. And, again, it's like, I think that's the hard part of like, somewhat overnight feeling like you're an advocate or like this representative for a community that you don't actually know everything about, so on my channel too, like I don't know a ton about like, intellectual disabilities or chronic illness, like, and that's like, it's all things that like people are always welcome at a Disabled And event, like no matter their disability, visible or invisible. But, it's like, I think people, aren't always happy of like, it's never enough, I think, but it's like, there's only so much content you can do in a day. And so it's like, of course we have aspirations to feature everyone, but sometimes there are people just like more.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Do you receive that from fellow disabled people or parents saying that?
Fellow disabled people, I think.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, kind of like, why am I not seen here?
Why am I not seen here? Okay. Yeah. I was to say, because if it's coming from a parent, then to me, it's because their grief buttons are getting pushed. Wouldn't you say, Susanna?
I would think so. Sure. Yeah. And projecting a little bit and feeling, that overprotective mommy or daddy energy that is so understandable.
Totally.
April, do you have something that is like your favorite thing to say to your community to bring them a sense of belonging, to let them know that their creativity deserves to shine, whatever that is?
It's a good question. I mean, we have a couple like fun phrases that I feel like we say often at Disabled And, like, fill in your blank, or, disability and creativity can coexist. I'm really passionate about this idea of like disability can be aspirational, not always inspirational. And I think, I'm sure you guys have heard too, within this community now, kind of like a new topic is like, not every disabled person wants to be inspirational, just for living their life. And so, I don't mind, like, I think it's flattering when people say that I'm inspirational, and I love that. And I'm a very positive person, but, not every disabled person wants to be seen as an inspiration. And so also reframing that, like, outside of inspirational, like, disabled people can also be really cool and like someone that you aspire to. Like, you can like someone's style just because you like their style, not just because like, oh, they tried and like that's extra cool because like, right. It's like not as good as like somebody else, but like good on them. Like, you can aspire to be, what they are too. So
yes, so great. I love that so much. Yeah,
I do too. I really, really do. I'm so thankful for you. I'm thankful for your voice. And I am so grateful that you are just being so vulnerable and authentic and sharing and giving a place for others. You are.
Thank you.
You're
so are you guys.
Yeah. We look forward to your world tour. Okay. So
Me too.
Let's just talk about ways that we can meet up in Copenhagen. Right?
We'll plant the seeds now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Well, April, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story and letting us in on all the good work that you're doing and this journey that you're on. And we just wish you the best. We just wish you the best, great adventures, great connections, wonderful friendships, lots and lots and lots of creativity.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. And thank you for all the work you do. It's such an honor to be here.
Thanks so much for listening today. Do us a favor and leave us a review and a rating so that this podcast can get into the ears and the hearts of more and more moms. Did you know that Brave Together podcast is an extension of our nonprofit organization, We Are Brave Together? We Are Brave Together serves an international community of caregiving moms, offering support groups that are virtual and in-person, educational resources, and low-cost weekend retreats. And we have published our first anthology of caregiving stories entitled Becoming Brave Together, Heroic, Extraordinary Caregiving Stories from Mothers Hidden in Plain Sight. It will encourage and validate every parent caregiver. To join us today, go to wearebravetogether.org. Our support and sisterhood awaits you. Brave Together podcast is for entertainment and education purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional care and should not be relied on for medical or mental health advice. The use of any content on our podcast, links, show notes, or on our website is to be done at your own personal risk. Please seek out a professional to assess your own medical or mental health concerns because we are all beautifully complex and the content of this podcast is for a broad audience.